Little Red Riding Hood an extended tale. Once upon a time, in a small and quiet village surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills, there lived a cheerful young girl named Lillian. Though everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood, she had earned this nickname because of a cloak her grandmother had sewn for her when she was only 6 years old. It was made of soft wool, dyed the color of the brightest red berries that grew in the woods, and whenever she wore it, she looked like a glowing flame against the greenery of the forest. Little Red Riding Hood was loved dearly by everyone in the village, but especially by her grandmother, who lived in a small cottage on the far side of the woods. Her grandmother was kind and wise, and she often told stories to Red about the forest, stories about its beauty, its secrets, and also its dangers. Though Red Riding Hood was curious and adventurous, she respected her grandmother deeply and always listened carefully to her words. A message from Mother. One bright spring morning, as the birds were singing in the trees and the smell of fresh bread filled their small kitchen, Red's mother called her over. "Lillian," she said gently, "your grandmother isn't feeling very well today. I've baked her some bread, and I've packed a jar of honey and some fresh butter. Would you please take these to her cottage? I know she would be glad to see you." Red Riding Hood's eyes sparkled. She loved walking through the forest, and she loved her grandmother even more. "Of course, Mother," she said happily. Her mother gave her a long look, serious but loving. "Remember, my dear, the forest can be tricky. Stay on the path, do not wander, and do not speak to strangers. Go straight to your grandmother's house and straight back." "Do you understand?" "Yes, Mother," Red replied, pulling her red cloak around her shoulders. She thought the rules were simple enough. She kissed her mother on the cheek, picked up the basket, and set out for the forest. The forest path. The forest was alive with sound and color. The air was fresh and cool, filled with the scent of pine and blooming flowers. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting patterns on the ground like golden lace. As Red Riding Hood walked along the familiar path, she hummed to herself, swinging her basket gently. She loved the way the wildflowers leaned toward the sun, and how the butterflies danced between them. The world seemed so peaceful that morning, and she felt as though nothing could go wrong. But deep among the trees, someone was watching her. The wolf appears. The wolf was sly, clever, and always hungry. He had seen the girl in the red cloak before, and he knew she often passed through the forest on her way to visit her grandmother. Today, he thought, would be the perfect day to trick her. He stepped out from behind the trees, his fur dark and his eyes glinting with mischief. "Good morning, little one," he said in a voice that sounded smooth and friendly, though his heart was full of wicked plans. Red Riding Hood stopped, startled, but remembered her mother's warning. "Good morning," she said politely, though she kept her eyes on the path. The wolf tilted his head. "And where might you be going on this fine day? Your basket looks heavy." "Perhaps I can help." Red hesitated. She knew she shouldn't speak to strangers, but the wolf's tone seemed kind. "I'm going to visit my grandmother. She's not feeling well. I'm bringing her bread, honey, and butter." The wolf's ears twitched with delight. "Ah, what a thoughtful granddaughter you are. And where does your grandmother live?" Red pointed toward the north. "In the little cottage on the other side of the forest, near the tall oak tree." The wolf smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "What a wonderful walk you must have. But why hurry? Look at the flowers all around you. Wouldn't your grandmother love a bouquet? You could surprise her with more than bread and honey." Red Riding Hood looked at the blossoms along the path. Her grandmother did love flowers. Maybe, just a few, she thought. A dangerous delay. The wolf bowed his head. "That's the spirit, child. Pick the prettiest ones you can find. I'm sure your grandmother will be delighted." And with that, he slinked away into the shadows of the forest. But the wolf did not head home. Instead, he took a shorter path, one only he knew, a twisting trail that led directly to the grandmother's cottage. His plan was simple. He would get there first. Meanwhile, Red Riding Hood wandered among the trees, picking daisies, violets, and wild roses. The forest seemed magical, and she forgot her mother's warning about staying on the path. She even sat down for a moment to listen to a stream bubbling nearby. Time slipped away, and while she was distracted, the wolf was already knocking on her grandmother's door. "The cottage encounter, who is it?" called the grandmother weakly from inside. "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf answered in his sweetest voice. "I've brought you bread, honey, and butter. Come in, dear," the grandmother replied. The wolf pushed open the door, leapt inside, and with a single gulp, swallowed the poor woman whole. He licked his lips and chuckled. Then he put on her nightgown and cap, pulled the covers up to his chin, and waited. Not long after, Red Riding Hood finally remembered her mission. With a basket full of flowers and food, she hurried toward her grandmother's cottage. She knocked gently on the door. "Come in, dear," said the wolf, disguising his voice. The famous conversation. Red Riding Hood entered the small room and saw her grandmother in bed. Something looked strange, but she stepped closer. "Grandmother," she said slowly, "what big eyes you have, all the better to see you with, my dear," replied the wolf. Red frowned. "And grandmother, what big ears you have, all the better to hear you with, my dear." Red hesitated. "And grandmother, what big hands you have, all the better to hug you with, my dear." Finally, Red gasped. "But grandmother, what big teeth you have." The wolf threw off the covers, his eyes gleaming. "All the better to eat you with," he roared, leaping toward her. The rescue. Red Riding Hood screamed, dropping her basket. She tried to run, but the wolf was too quick. Just as he lunged, the door burst open. A woodsman, who had been chopping logs nearby, had heard the scream. He rushed into the cottage, axe in hand. Seeing the wolf about to devour the girl, he shouted, "Not so fast, you wicked beast!" With a single strike, he stunned the wolf, and with great effort, he managed to cut open the wolf's belly. Out came grandmother, shaken but alive. The wolf, defeated, fled into the forest, never to return to that part of the woods again. Lessons learned. Red Riding Hood hugged her grandmother tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, grandmother. I shouldn't have spoken to the wolf, and I shouldn't have left the path." Her grandmother stroked her hair. "Yes, child, but you are safe now, and you have learned an important lesson. The forest is beautiful, but it is also dangerous. You must always remember the wisdom of your elders." The woodsman smiled kindly. "And remember," he added, "not everyone who speaks sweetly has good intentions." From that day forward, Red Riding Hood promised herself she would always be careful, always listen to her mother's warnings, and never let curiosity or distraction lead her into danger again. The legacy of the story. Years later, when Red Riding Hood was grown and had children of her own, she told them the story of the wolf. She told it not to frighten them, but to remind them of the importance of caution, of listening to their elders, and of never judging safety by appearances. The forest was still there, still full of beauty and danger. And every time she walked its paths, she remembered that long ago day when she had nearly been devoured by a creature who wore kindness like a mask. But she also remembered something else, that courage, quick thinking, and the help of others could overcome even the darkest of dangers. And so, the story of Little Red Riding Hood was told and retold, not just as a fairy tale, but as a lesson of wisdom, bravery, and trust.